Hey there, Living Waters family. Drew here with another Soul Care Saturday video. So I remember it was maybe about 12 or so years ago, I was watching this message being given by a man named Nick Vujicic. And for those of you who don't know who Nick Vujicic is, he was a guy who was born without arms and legs, and he's from Australia, and he's a motivational speaker and an evangelist, and he's just an overall great guy. But I remember being struck by this message that he was giving because it was all about joy and the joy of the Lord being our strength. And it was a profound thing watching this man with no arms and no legs talk exuberantly and authentically about deep and residing joy. Super challenging to me. It was just in my own life, in my own circumstances, being like, well, if a guy like that can have exceeding amounts of joy, I have no excuse. So it was a bit convicting. But I remember, we'll never forget actually, when he got to this point in this message where he started talking about what steals joy. And he brought up this word, busy. And he said, you know, you ask anyone how they're doing and they're likely to answer like, oh, good, busy, but good. And that felt really convicting too, and it still does, because honestly, anyone asks me how I'm doing, that's pretty much going to be my response. I'm good, you know, it's busy, lots going on, but good. Well, when he began to dissect busy, he turned busy, the word busy, B-U-S-Y, into an acronym. And he basically described it like this: burdening under Satan's yoke. That's what busy is, burdening under the yoke of Satan. Man, that was convicting. It was incredibly convicting. And what it did for me, and what it continues to do for me, and I have to come back and revisit it often, is that it illuminated this lack of something in my life, and I think in a lot of our lives, that produce this busyness in us, and that is a lack of margins. Now, you've heard me talk about boundaries before, and boundaries are just like the places where people stay out, and you can let them know where to come in. Boundaries is a great concept. We all need it, but margins is a little different. Margins are the space in between things that we create. So if you know, like on a piece of paper, on a piece of school paper, you know that they have like 1.5 inch margins on the edges. And whenever we're formatting a Word document, we have to know what our margins are to create that space between the edges and the content. And on a practical, emotional, spiritual level, we need margins in our lives all over the place. We need them in our daily schedule. We need them in our routine. We need them in our social engagements, in our commitments, because so often we've gotten so full in our lives with really good things that all those good things are pushing out any margin from our life, and we're just kind of existing sandwiched against thing against thing against thing against thing, and we have no room to breathe, no space to rest. And it's often in those places of margin that the Holy Spirit really finds receptive places in our heart to speak. But if we're busy moving from thing to thing to thing with no margins in our life, we really cut out that ability to be refreshed by the Spirit. So I guess I want to challenge us as a community, and I want to ask you to evaluate your life and ask yourself, what kind of margins do I have? Do I have really big margins, and have I created a lot of space in between things and places to rest and to find joy and to breathe and to process? Or have I illuminated all of my margins by shoving and cramming space and things into those spaces? Now, just for a bit of clarity, watching Netflix is not a margin. Sitting on your phone and looking at social media, that's also not a margin. There are a lot of things that we do that are resting, but they're not actually margins. They're stealing our margins and filling that space where we could refresh ourselves and gain intimacy with the Lord or with other people. Instead, those margins are filled with something that isn't going to produce anything. So the challenge today that I'm getting at is, I want to challenge our community to look at our lives and examine just a week in your life and ask yourself, where are my margins? Where's the space that I've created so that I can breathe, so that I can think, so that I can make good choices, so that I can hear from the Holy Spirit, so that I can rest, so that I have space if something else needs that space, if some other person or some other problem or something, where's my margins? Where's my breathing room? I can guarantee you, if we fight to increase our margins in life, not to an insane level where, we just walking around with nothing but space, because there is such a thing as too much recreation in space. But if we create more robust margins in our life and push away this sense of urgency and busyness because of just overfilled lives, I wonder what that would do with our relationships with each other and with the Lord. So I want to challenge you today. Look at your life, look at your week. Where are your margins? Are you filling them with things you shouldn't be filling them with? Are they non-existent? Do you need to carve out some margins? I think it would do us a lot of good. Anyway, I love you all. Just a little food for thought this week. Bless you. Have a good week.